Uh, Thank you so much. Um, I will start with the big picture. My talk will be a technical talk about the internet. I will talk about three major areas of opportunity for you, areas where the world depends on your work, where you are important. But to explain why you are important, I need to start with just a few slides on the bigger picture. The bigger picture.
If you don't mind, can you use the slideshow so the full
Okay.
screen will show on the big
Okay, I
LED
hope it
monitor?
doesn't explode this time. Last time I tried it, it exploded, but I'll do again. Let's hope this works. Okay, so the big picture. When I worked at the National Science Foundation and at the US Senate and at IEEE, I learned more and more that our species, the human species, is in danger. We are in danger more than I would have believed even 10 years ago. But the science is telling us about very, very serious dangers. When Fei Wei says we have a common destiny, that is exactly true. All of humanity may live or die in this century because of four big existential threats. And today I will talk about the first of these, the risk if we do not fix the internet. Your technical abilities are critical to fixing the internet. If we do not fix the internet, we might all die. But the other big risk we hear about is climate extinction. And we all know they are talking about climate. 2 years ago, Kerry, representing the President of the United States, appeared on television with Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations. And they said, we need to create a new office of climate extinction under the Security Council of the United Nations, because it is a matter of life and death for everyone. They wanted to do this. The truth is that the President of the United States at that time and the chairman of China did not know each other very well. And the United Nations said, oh, China will not support this. But they did not totally give up. Guterres, the Secretary General, is still working very hard on a program for common heritage. I have been connected to that group, to the futurists, and we are discussing a possibility. If we have a common destiny, let us make an agreement. Let us work on both of these big threats, the climate threat and the internet threat. Xi Jinping gave a major speech 2 years ago saying we need to cooperate on the coming problems of the internet. I propose let's do both. Let's work on the problems which Xi Jinping wanted attention to. Let's also work on climate. Let's do both of these things and more. So I've been working very hard with this group. If you look at this website here, buildaworld.org, it has lots of material about this bigger context. But the bottom line is the number one problem is if we do not get the internet straight. That's where we need you. There are also great hopes. The internet could lead us also to great higher potential. So this is just the bigger context. I will be more technical. All over the world, people are worried about the future of the internet. They know there are problems, but they do not understand what the problems are. There are many lawyers and politicians who do not understand the technology, and they have many, many theories about this problem, about jobs, about work, about fake news. And the question is, which of these problems is real? There's only one problem. The one problem is the system design, which causes all of these little problems. All these little problems, which could kill us, these little problems are really just symptoms of a bigger problem, of internet design. And that's where we need IEEE people. Several years ago, I was asked to go to the headquarters of Intel in California. And they have a futures division, and we talked about the future. And I said, the future for the internet could kill us or it could save us. It depends on what kind of paradigm do we implement. How do we design the internet? It's not just a job for lawyers. It's an issue of design, but it has to respond to human connections. We have to connect the human side and the technical design. The present work on the internet is very scary. You'll see, oops, well, we skipped right over that, okay? When I worked for the National Science Foundation, I got to hear the leaders of major corporations describing their plan for the future of the internet. And their plans were very scary. If there was a thing called Watson, if you saw the details of that plan, it's terrifying. If you know the technology, if you really know the technology, as I do, and you look at their business plan, the combination is a threat to humanity. There are several paradigms that can be used, but we do have new technology which makes it possible to avoid these problems. And if we had a lot of time, I would talk about all 5 of these great new things. If we use them, we can save the human species, we can make life better. But if we wait for the market to take care of it all by itself, then we will have business plans like what could kill us. So our future is at risk. We are at a crossroads. It's not clear whether we will live or die. Whether we live or die depends on you. If someone tells you the future is good and they know it, don't believe them. If they say the future is bad, don't believe them, because the future is not decided. You and I will decide the future by whether we implement a new kind of internet. And that's critical. And that's why I'm glad to speak to you, because you are the ones who are young enough to be able to fix the internet and build a new world. Several years ago, I studied the technical requirements of a sustainable, intelligent internet. They are very complicated. They need a lot of work from a lot of people. I hope the United Nations accepts this challenge, and I hope I will have a chance to talk to them about all of the important pieces. But right now, we don't have that office yet. So right now, we have to ask ourselves, what are the most important steps we need to take now to survive now? And that's what I will talk to you about. 3 major steps. Okay? This is my real outline for the talk today. These are the 3 most urgent needs where you can make a big difference for creating a sustainable, intelligent internet. These are life or death urgent needs. The first urgent need is radical improvements in cybersecurity. In fact, there is a statement from Xi Jinping, which was posted on the website of the Foreign Ministry, where Xi Jinping calls for new international collaboration. And the first step he asked for was, let's get rid of the back doors in software and hardware. Back doors in computer programs and in hardware are responsible for all of the really big scandals of cybersecurity in recent years. And this is urgent. This is urgent because cyber currency, computer money, will be running the world economy very soon. There are people in Washington who think that all you do is write pieces of paper, and that's the world economy. We run the money of the world. They need to learn the world is changing very quickly. Cyber currency, not cryptocurrency, but cyber currency will be running the entire world economy very soon. Whether the world falls in depression or not depends on whether we develop a more secure form of cyber currency. But the cyber currency out there today is not secure. It is not secure enough for the world economy to be safe. And the world economy will not be safe unless we do what Xi Jinping asked for, which is an international collaboration to get rid of the back doors in the software and the hardware. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. There are many people who pretend they know about cybersecurity. They are making lots of money. They have an economic incentive to lie and to pretend that they know how to do it, but they don't. I have seen what these security consultants offer to their customers. And what they offer is good for 20% of the problem. But the big problems in recent years have been based on these back doors. And the only way to solve these backdoor problems on an international, open, effective basis is by using advanced technologies, which I would call Rainbow Book and quantum bromium. Rainbow Book, there are many people in IEEE who already know about it. I could even send you what IEEE has said about that. But what's new is quantum bromium. How we can develop a new quantum technology. It requires what I call quantum artificial general intelligence. You here are in AGIST. Well, for me, AGI is artificial general intelligence, but we need a new level of artificial intelligence, a whole new level of neural network technology, which I call QAGI. This is a new technical specification. I will try to explain to you how to do it. And if you follow up, you could become the world leaders in this because this is a totally new area. So the first thing I want to talk about are these improvements in cybersecurity, especially the technology of QAGI. Let me just say briefly, you all know what reinforcement learning is, I think. You heard about that's what IEEE gave me the award for, was starting off this technology we call RLADP. And I brought it to China many times. But there is a quantum extension, which is 1,000,000 times more powerful. And that's the next big step. And I will talk about that in the first part of my talk. But that's not enough. We also need higher levels of intelligence just in general, not only for cybersecurity, but for running power grids. Efficiency in the power grid is critical to sustainability. The cost of electric power depends on the quality of control, among other things. And a higher level of intelligence in the electric power system to manage the Internet of Things could be critical to climate survival. There are many people who are developing very powerful applications for the Internet of Things, which could dominate the world. But you know, a whole swarm of locusts can also dominate the world. They dominate it, but they destroy it. There are many applications being developed for the internet which are not safe for humanity. And that's why we need quantum intelligence for the integrative platform and applications. So that's the second of the three topics. I hope I can get through these today, but these are all big things. And then we need a deeper, better human interface. And that's one reason I am so happy to connect to Nanjing, because this connects to neuroscience. And I am very glad I had a chance to work with Carl Pribram and with Walter Freeman, and Robert Kozma did the same. We worked together to understand the brain, and it also is a pathway to understanding Qi. And I claim that we need to understand Qi. We need to understand how to connect to the whole world of nature we are part of. If we build an internet which connects humans to the planet, then we may survive. But if humans fight the planet, we may discover that planet has power we don't know. So this is really critical. All three of these things, it will be very difficult in just 1 hour to do justice to all three of these. These are not easy subjects. This is much harder than climate change because these require high levels of understanding, but I will try to give you an overview, and I will try to give you links so that you can find out more. And then Gina Tang would be probably happy to expand the conversation if you are interested in these three things. These are the three urgent areas where we need new action. And you have the capability for new action in any one of these three. And I hope you will have people to explore all three of them. And I hope I can help you. So now let's start with the quantum one. Quantum artificial general intelligence. This is the subject of the plenary talk I gave at WICI, the World Congress on Computational Intelligence, in Italy this year. You probably know Systems Man and Cybernetics is the IEEE lead society to connect to humans. The neural net field was really born in SMC before there was a Computational Intelligence Society. But now the Computational Intelligence Society is a big one. It is the #1 place for developing advanced neural network technology, advanced AGI technology. It is the Computational Intelligence Society. And they asked me to give a plenary this year to give you an overview and history. Where does this advanced artificial intelligence come from? And that took a whole hour. We started with work by von Neumann and Wiener. I wish I could talk about them. Major conferences at IEEE. We're doing backpropagation through time and neurocontrol, and this all happened in China. There's a deep learning revolution, which was due to a program at NSF, which I started, which led it to Google TensorFlow, the deep learning revolution. The third stage of the revolution was in Beijing. In Beijing, in WICI in 2014, I presented a roadmap for how we can build AGI all the way up to the mammal level. This is not quantum technology. This is the most advanced classical technology. I was excited when NSFC and the Chinese Academy of Sciences decided they wanted to do a program to pursue this roadmap. In my opinion, China is now ahead of the United States in all of these core technologies because China became interested, and then the US military has its internal politics. But today, there is a stage beyond that, a further revolution, which is the quantum version of reinforcement learning, which has special capabilities to let you see the sky with high resolution. You can, and of course, there's cybersecurity, and there are power grids. So this is just what I spoke about then, quantum artificial general intelligence. And what is it? I should say a little bit more about quantum technology. I was actually the NSF representative to an interagency US government group called QuizCog, Quantum Information Sciences Coordinating Group. We had a budget of about $1 billion, so I learned a lot from that effort. Yeah. So, hello? Okay, so this is just kind of background, but the Senate, Mark Warner, my senator, leads the Senate Intelligence Committee. He lists quantum technology as one of the key drivers of the whole future of the world, along with AI and cyber warfare. And I mentioned the importance of sustainable intelligent internet. I have a link at my home webpage, which discusses in great detail how to do that. And David Deutsch of the UK has been a great leader in that area. So let me explain this a little bit more. Almost all of the work on quantum computing in the United States today is based on David Deutsch's concept of a quantum Turing machine. Some people say, well, didn't God give us this? Didn't Feynman give us this? Didn't they say quantum stuff is nice? But David Deutsch of Oxford is the person who published the papers on the universal quantum Turing machine and on the concept of physics. He had a theory of physics, the multiverse theory, and he used that theory to construct a new design for a computer. David Deutsch believes the theory of physics which says that we live in Fox space. They call it a multiverse now, but it's Fox space, an infinite dimensional space with multiple copies of us all. We are what they call macroscopic Schrodinger cats. So there are two of you. There are more than two. There are 100 of you. You think you are the only version of yourself? No, there are many versions of each one of us in the big universe of the Fox space, which he calls multiverse. And David Deutsch said, I can use this idea of physics in engineering. I have an approach to parallel computing where we can use thousands or trillions of copies of the same chip in parallel. If there can be 1 million copies of us, can we build a computer where there are 1 million copies of the same chip doing different work? It's like massive parallel processing. People said he was crazy. Then they found out he was right. Then they found it worked. Then they spent $1 billion figuring out how to use it. His concept of a quantum Turing machine is a great, great landmark in science. But some of you know what a Turing machine is. You know it's a binary computer. Some of you know that we can get better performance than binary computers if we use continuous variables and neural networks. And in fact, there are theorems for that. But before I go further, I have to give you a warning. There are some philosophers who don't believe in David Deutsch. They think this whole idea is weird. And introductory quantum courses will teach you that the wave function psi is a statistical description of the state of the universe. Many philosophers still believe that. Many philosophers still believe God created the universe 1,000 years ago. People believe strange things. But in real science, we know that is not true. In David Deutsch's theory of physics, we know that psi describes a possible state of the universe. It's a possible state. But to build a chip, you need to know statistics. You need to know thermodynamics. You need to know about probability distributions. When I was at the National Science Foundation, I learned very well. Some people believed in quantum computing based on a wave function. We sent it for review to real electronics people, to real condensed matter physicists, and they said it won't work. It won't work because this is not a valid statistical description. You need to know the probability of the states, and the way to do that is by using something called a density matrix. And the reason I mention this, if you want to become the world leader in quantum AGI, you have to know what a density matrix is. You have to go beyond the old idea of the wave function. In order to learn what a density matrix is, I strongly recommend a book by Walls and Milburn called Quantum Optics. And in fact, it's available for free as PDF, I found on the web. I think I sent a link to Gina. It's a well-known book, and it explains about the density matrix. And I have to be honest, I learned about the density matrix and this statistics from this book by Walls and Milburn when it was recommended to me by the leading people of this QuizCog interagency group. When I was new to the interagency group, the real scientist of all the US quantum computing at that time walked up to me and said, if you want to understand what's really going on, read that book. So I did, and he was right. I'm sad that he died, but that's another matter. So here's the point for future quantum computing. The standard quantum Turing machines have limited power. If you want to build a neural network or an intelligent controller, these systems have limited power. There have been major reviews of what a quantum Turing machine can do for neural networks and optimization. And frankly, they aren't much. I've seen very high quality reviews. Berkeley had a video series. I think the National Science Security Agency was behind it. They looked very closely. The quantum Turing machine doesn't have much power to train a neural net or control a complex system. I was very excited when I learned about a Canadian company called D-Wave. And they said, we are not building a digital computer. We are not building a computer to run sequential programs. We are building an optimization machine. This is like neural nets. You don't program the neural net. You design the neural net to learn and to optimize to do jobs better than you could get from a sequential computer. And so D-Wave has a beautiful story. And Google put a lot of money into D-Wave for many years until they discovered it didn't work. D-Wave has great tools for neural networks, but the underlying physics was not right. They understood computers. They were good computer scientists. They didn't understand the physics. And so as a result, I have figured out how to fix this. So I came up with something new. In the World Congress on Computational Intelligence, I give a link to a paper I published last year from Elsevier, which describes how to do it right, how to do what D-Wave wanted to do, but it can work. Millions of times higher efficiency. The next stage, I hope one of you will learn about these master equations. I have a paper on quantum quadratic optimization, which in 5-6 pages tells you how to do step one. And if any of you can learn what a master equation is, my paper describes the master equation. It's all there. It's not so many equations. It's like 5 pages long. If you understand those 5 pages, and if you do the computer simulations I describe in that paper, you could get information property that could be worth billions. This is the first step. Quantum quadratic optimization is the first step on a plan. I published the whole plan, but the next critical step, the most important step, is something you could do at a university if anybody at your university can understand that book by Walls and Milburn and understand my 5-page paper. And by the way, I did do a provisional patent filing a few months ago. When people in the aerospace sector found out about this, I do have a provisional patent filing, but it turns out that the key engineer died. And as a result, probably it won't be patented this year, but the paper is there if anybody is interested. And I'm planning to make the paper public soon. So they're actually, this new quantum technology, there are 3 levels of it. Thermal quantum annealing. What D-Wave didn't understand is what annealing is. And annealing, a good engineer, you're supposed to know what annealing is. Annealing is a technology where you're interacting with the thermal noise in your environment in order to lower your energy profile. We can do that, and my paper describes how. And it's sad that D-Wave didn't understand that. The D-Wave design, they just iterate around at a certain energy level. But the key to this new design, which I published, is to take advantage of real physical annealing with real physical systems. And there's several hardware platforms that could work very nicely with that. It is relevant to electricity because controlling power grids is an optimization challenge. Since I didn't leave myself a lot of time, I'll have to go through this very quickly. But I used to run the electric power program. That was one of my research areas at the National Science Foundation. Number 1 was neural networks. And then number 2 was electric power. And number 3 was quantum systems. And we learned very early, if you can build an optimization system that is very fine-grained and powerful, you can be incredibly useful to the power system. This, if I had time, I'd explain more why, but the point is time of day is critical. Noise is critical in the power grid. It's a problem in control across time, subject to stochastic disturbances. Our technology of RLADP can already help. We already have neural net technology, which could be very useful for the world power grid. Whenever I see the European Union talk about surviving without fossil fuel. I say, gee, they need to learn this technology because already we have grid control technology, which would make life so much easier for those poor people in the EU who are starting to suffer. There are many opportunities for using reinforcement learning in the power grid. We can cut the cost of renewables in half. If you want to switch from oil and gas to renewables, you can switch from oil and gas to renewables if you cut the cost in half. And it turns out there are ways to do that by more efficient control. And the quantum thing, we may not even need the quantum thing, but it would make it a little easier. For example, there are things like wind turbines, which have stuff called power electronics. And this stuff runs with millisecond control times. Conventional control has troubles optimizing at this kind of speed. But with a quantum AGI, you can handle this complexity. And that makes it possible to really optimize. And when you do that, all of a sudden, the disturbances which were a cost become an asset. And that's why you can cut the cost to the user in half if you have the right control. And I spent a lot of time funding this, but I need to give at least a few minutes to the third, which may be most important to you. There's a YouTube which describes a talk I gave to India. The India Foundation is very interested in intelligence and our connection to the noosphere. They believe that the human mind has something like chi. And in India, I describe what we have learned. In the last 2 years, we have made radical progress in understanding how brains implement intelligence. We have lots of new data. There was a major NSF program. And I wish I had time to talk about this. It's important. But, you know, if you go to the YouTube, I talk at length about levels of intelligence. We had a major NSF program. In fact, at the NSF webpage, if you search on the letters COPN, you will see the most advanced brain research program there has ever been in the world to understand functionally how intelligence works in the brain. There are lots of programs that do other things, but if you want to understand intelligence in the brain, how brains do this stuff, just search on the term COPN at the NSF webpage. Oh God, I wish I had time to explain these things. This is what I presented in Beijing in 2014. We have a roadmap to go all the way up to building artificial intelligence as complex as the mouse. We know how to do it. We know the mathematics now. And we can connect it to real neuroscience data. We have got new data which backs up this new theory of how the brain actually works. And in fact, this is the paper which gives our data. So now we know there are levels and levels of intelligence. The mathematics lets us build systems as high as the level of a mouse. This is what I presented in Beijing. But we know the neuroscience a little bit better. And we know a little bit more about how this would connect to notions like chi. I did not used to believe there was such a thing as chi. I can remember very clearly this book, The Organization of Behavior by Hebb. I strongly recommend everybody in the neural net field should read this book. It is not just Hebbian learning. It is more than that. But in the beginning of the book, Hebb says we need to know Bayes' law. He said, I don't believe in spiritual experience or chi. That's all nonsense, he said. It's all nonsense because Bayes' law tells me it's not likely. Bayes' law says if we have a theory about the human mind and we want to know what is the probability of it conditional on our experience, we have to remember that it's the product of two terms, the likelihood term and an a priori term. And Hebb argued the probability there could be such a thing as psychic phenomena or spirit or chi, it's impossible. And he said, and that's why I don't believe it. And I agreed with him until I learned more. And I learned that physics is more complicated than I used to believe. And I also explored the world of experience and the world of chi. And if you come to the conclusion that you have to allow for this possibility, traditional quantum electronics, QED physics cannot explain it. And that's why I thought it was impossible. But it turns out there is another way to understand this. It turns out that our cosmos is not mostly made of the matter we understand from QED physics. What I'm showing you here is a picture. I showed this slide only one time before. That was in the Chinese Academy of Sciences a few years ago. This is an actual photograph of our universe. Those little orange dots are galaxies. But galaxies are not the main part of our universe. There's something they call dark matter, which is more than 2/3, maybe 90% of the mass energy in our universe is something else. And when you have a vast ocean, of energy and matter lasting for billions of years and connected, common sense says life should evolve in such a universe. And my claim is that we are part of this universe. We are not alone. Our noosphere is actually just one tiny little creature in this giant world. And if we can connect to our noosphere, well, we have some chance of survival. And finally, let me say, there's some real science. Nanjing has been a center for the study of qi, but there's also new physics, which I think might possibly let us see where the dark matter is. And maybe that's the same as where the qi is. Maybe we can build scientific instruments which would let us see the qi. And if we can see the qi, we can connect to it. And if we can see it and connect to it, maybe we could build an internet which responds to this greater world we are part of, which is not fighting our noosphere. Because if we fight the natural world, we may not live as long as we think. Anyway, thank you for your tolerance and your patience.